Welcome to my 4-step Procreate art process. My name is Elsewhere, so I enjoy cooking, so I whipped up these 3 pieces for this video to show you exactly how I make the majority of my art in Procreate. Let's get started. Let's get cooking. Step 1, find your guide. An adventure without a guide is like assembling IKEA furniture without instructions. Good luck. If I have a clear visual of where I'm trying to go, my process is so much easier and smoother, so I cannot stress the importance of finding good references that help you get where you want to go. I have used all sorts of creative libraries like Pinterest or Behance and Dribbble, but for these, I actually used Midjourney because it is definitely saving me time and it's way more fun. It's like a mystery box. It's just so cool. And most of the time, it rewards pretty good stuff. So I might argue that finding a guide or a good reference is the most important step in the whole process because I don't want to be lost halfway through the process and then have to turn around and start all over. I try and take my time, have fun with it, and get as many ideas as possible. Step 2, sketching. So for sketching, I like to use the Procreate pencil, and I'll usually have a blue color for this for no particular reason besides I think it looks cool. The point of sketching is to get a good plan for your final artwork. So here I'll typically trace the reference, change anything that I want to, like shapes or sizes, or add new things. But for the most part, if it's something new, I'll just trace it because that is way easier to learn how to make something new. I'll also sketch in some shadows just so I have a guide later on. So this is probably the most free and, in my opinion, fun part of the whole process because it's freeing and you get to play around. And I've always loved doodling and sketching, so my favorite part. But again, I try and take my time here so that I have a clear visual for the next step, which is step 3, the line art. For the line art, I use my go-to studio pen. Just absolutely love this brush. I use the studio pen so much, I don't even think I know any of the other brushes off the top of my head in that category of pens or ink, whatever it is. All I know is studio pen. Maybe that shows I should branch out and try some other things, but it's just so good. It has such a good taper. It has, which is the little point that you get at the end when you drag it across the screen. It's got such a good line weight thickness to it. Just all around great pen. In this step, I will, on a new layer, trace over my sketch and add in any other details. Then in some other areas, I'll add more black where there's going to be just heavy shadows. And this part of the process typically stresses me out the most. I often find myself holding my breath, which is horrible. So I try and relax when I do this and take my time again. More often than not, I find myself double tapping to undo something because it doesn't look right to me. You know, you want those lines to look good. You just do. You know, it's the final lines. So it stresses me out a bit, but they also look great when you take your time. Yeah, I love how it looks when it all comes together. So having a good guide or reference, then having a good sketch helps this process of doing the line art so much because I don't have to freestyle. So again, each step has its own importance and feeds the next. Step number 4, lighting. I break my lighting down into 3 parts. Start with the shadows, I'll move into midtones or the actual fill color, and then I'll add highlights. So for shadows, I will start a new layer and I'll lower the opacity down to typically about 30%. I'll use the same color as my line art. So for these, it is black, and I will again use the studio pen. See, I use it all the time. And I'll use my guides and the line art to kind of draw in where I believe the shadows are gonna fall. This is definitely the hardest part, to understand how lighting affects all these different shapes, like especially in food. You know, you got all these kind of interesting organic, I don't know if organic's the word, but you got these weird shapes and how lighting hits these is odd. So I guess if I'm trying to make it realistic, I might overthink it, but ultimately the lighting can change. So I kind of have fun with it and just do what I think looks best. So after I complete my shadows, I'll move to my midtones or the fill color. And for this, I will make a new layer for each color and I'll drag and drop the color in, and then I'll use the continue fill feature, which is amazing because I don't have to keep dragging and dropping colors. especially when there's tons of different areas that need to be filled. The reason I keep different colors on separate layers is because most times I'll go back and change the colors, and keeping them organized makes this way easier. So definitely worth it. After I get my colors dropped in, I'll go and add highlights, and it's kind of the same process as the shadows. Like with the new layer, lower the opacity, use a studio pen, but instead of the line art color, I'll typically use the opposite. So if I'm doing black line art, I'll use white for my highlights, and again, a 30 to 60% opacity, depending on what I'm doing. Yeah, this is another area where lighting, I feel like takes a lot of time to master and understand, but it also makes things look so cool. So it's worth it to take your time again, I guess. Take your time on all this stuff is my note to myself here. So after I do my highlights, then I'm going to change the blend mode of my highlights and shadows, and I'll typically use a soft light. Sometimes I'll use hard light depending on which looks better, and then I'll adjust the opacity a little bit if I need to, but soft light is typically my go-to. So for these, that is what I used. So an extra tip, I kind of mentioned this before, to stay organized with layers, because it just makes things so much easier to adjust down the road. And I believe this is the biggest perk of digital art, is being able to change things quickly, and by not staying organized, you kind of lose the best part. Keep those layers organized. So to recap, start with a great reference or guide on where you want to go. Then go into the sketch, trace over your reference or change the shapes, customize it, have fun, and get yourself set up for the line art. Make those nice, good looking lines, then add in your shadows, midtones or color, and then highlights. Adjust your blend modes, keep everything organized, and voila, we got ourselves some food. Comment below if you have any other questions or have ideas for me to improve, because again, I'm learn here from YouTube, so I'm always open to input. So I'd love to know which one looks the best, the cheeseburger, the beef Sammy, or the stack of waffles. So creating food items like this was super fun. Highly recommend it if you need some creative ideas. Start with your favorite food or something that you think looks good. I believe that's it. Thanks for watching. Stay hungry. Peace.